Going live. Here we are. I believe we've arrived again. Sorry, I said I would be back in 20 minutes. I was a little more than 20 minutes. Unfortunately, sometimes things take a little longer than one expects. So here I am again, back again to talk to you all. I do apologize for disappearing, but I did think I'd have a little more time. But we did get to talk about various matters. And I know there were around about 100 of you already. And there we go. And I've just checked on this video I was on with the Sean Atwood channel, and that's already had nearly 10,000 views. So lots of people have been watching that. I provided a link to that. If you wish to watch my ramblings about Madeleine McCann, I hope you can hear me. We did the delivery. It turned out I was quite correct. It wasn't white wine. So a certain person is not too happy about that. They were meant to bring white wine and they brought red. So anyway, I'm having a glass of red wine for a change, which is quite nice. But obviously the other bottle can go back. Or the other bottles can go back, precisely. There we go. But we do have some white wine. So Lady Min is happy. I don't know where the little bird is, but the little bird has been very, very naughty. It came in the house and it has made a little bit of a mess. So I had to clear that up as well. That was another part of the problem of the delay. So not very good. Paulie says, can I recommend Adrian Allen to you? He's a good gentleman who dislikes Kitty and Barrymore as much as you. I don't know Adrian Allen. I don't know how you contact Adrian Allen or where he is to be found. But if you wish to put me in contact, if you know him, Paulie, please email at editorial@thesteepletimes.com. Obviously, I'm not very good with email till I get my new computer because we have to transfer all the data. But that will be arranged in the coming days because a solution is being organized. So it is being dealt with, but it's just a little more time-consuming than I thought because of various complexities. Okay, so there we are. UB40 likes red wine. Indeed, UB40 sing about red wine, don't they? Red wine. That is one of their songs. So could have been a quiz question, but no, it's not a quiz question for tonight. So because you've given away the answer. So even if it were going to be a tiebreaker question. But no, we've got no more sign of the little bird. I did make, as I said earlier, there's 40 of you here already. Sorry, I'm 37 minutes late for our normal hour, but I did do a little bit beforehand, and I hope some of you got to enjoy that. There were about 100 of you for that. So people are tuning in, and it's lovely to have you all. And I can give you a couple of quizzes tonight because I don't think I'll be able to do any quizzes tomorrow or anything else. So there we go. Anyway, here we are. We're saying hello to Keely and hello to Tina Da Silva and hello to Jojo. All these lovely people who've been following me all this time and joining in from the days of Broadstairs when we used to have Jono, the lovely Jono, who was, he'd come around for dinner, and the mad old Finn, who was completely off his rocker, and I believe he's taken up with a girlfriend who is the same age as his mother, which his mother's not very happy about. That's all I can tell you about that. Yes. Okay. Alex Belfield. Yes. Okay. If you want me to talk about Alex Belfield, he got out of prison today. Alex Belfield is an awful person. He used to do these tours with Katie Hopkins, and obviously I've never met Alex Belfield. And, he was sent to prison for the harassment of Jeremy Vine, amongst others. And obviously we all have mixed views on Jeremy Vine. Jeremy Vine's always been very polite to me. We've never really done anything other than correspond via email. I did talk about perhaps going on his show, which could have been an interesting thing to do, but he's very into this cycling, and I'm not really into cycling. My father loves to watch all this Tour de France stuff. He's very into cycling, and at the moment he's been watching all these cyclists in Yorkshire or something. There's something going on in Yorkshire to do with that. So he goes all over the place. As much as he loves horse racing, he likes cycling. My father likes everything, really. really. He loves rugby. I'm not into that either. I'm not into sport really. I like I like books. That's where we agree, you see. We're quite different in that sense. He's more into he did used to do lots of sports. He used to do lots of weird extreme things like climbing mountains. And one of his friends was the first woman to climb the Himalayas, from Derbyshire. I forget her name. I think I'd mentioned her in a quiz once. She was an amazing lady. I met her once, but I don't know whether she's still going. But anyway, she was mentioned in a newspaper the other day. I can't remember her name, but she was from Derbyshire, and she was a friend of my father. Amazing lady. And obviously, my friend Chris Bonington, he's still climbing mountains at age 91. What an amazing man. But my dad liked potholing. We did all sorts of things: sailing, fishing, shooting, you name it. But horse racing, obviously, is our joint passion. That's what we talk about. But I'm not really interested in the rest. But with regard to Alex Belfield is a vile, horrible, revolting little man. And as he got out of prison today, he really didn't help himself. He appeared with some kind of poster to do with Donald Trump. And he'd obviously arranged for the media to be there to photograph him, because somebody must have briefed the press, because prisoners who are let out early, they get let out early. A photographer wouldn't just be hanging around waiting for nobody. I know how paparazzi work, and it's all to do with tip-offs, and I know quite a few paparazzi. And, I've had a fair few run-ins with paparazzi myself, and there's one or two I quite get along with. But I know Britain's original paparazzi. He's the only one allowed on the inside, Richard Young, who now has a very respectable gallery in Kensington. He was in the Evening Standard. I was reading earlier, because there's a new television show, and they featured his gallery. And him and his lovely wife, Susan, and lovely daughter, Hannah Harley Young, they're all great photographers. And of course, the Getty family said, please come to the wedding with Richard Young, come and be on the inside. Well, he got the wrong date, so they had to do all the photographs. They had to recreate the wedding again the next day. That was a mad incident, but he was involved with Elizabeth Taylor and all those greats, and he's got a wonderful archive. Him and John Stoddart, another good friend of mine, who I'll hopefully be seeing at a wedding coming up in a few days. A couple of weeks or so. I'd like to see him, and he's got a wonderful archive. He turned Catherine Zeta-Jones from Darling Buds of May, which was like an ITV sort of drama series, to Hollywood Siren by making her a bit more sexy. And that photograph really helped her. He captured Daniel Craig on the day he became James Bond, and that's become a great thing. He's done lots of poster shoots for Pierce Brosnan as James Bond. People like that, he traveled with the Blairs in Russia, and he did a thing with Prince Andrew and Fergie that actually made them look pleasant. I was quite shocked when I saw these photographs, because it's not how they look now. It's the most charming set of photographs of them. They look like the most wholesome, lovely couple. They're separately photographed, but the images are fabulous and very good. His Arnold Schwarzenegger and all sorts of people. Absolutely great pictures. But there we are. So there we are. But going back to Alex Belfield and his paparazzi, he then stuck tape over his mouth and said, I am gagged. I'm not allowed to be silenced. I'm being silenced, and all the rest of it. He is trying to get too much attention. He will find himself thrown back in the clink, because he will start to breach his parole. He is a very nasty little man, and the nasty little things he sent to people and the way he behaved. He should never have been on the BBC. He's another example of why the BBC should be privatised. I don't think there should be a licence fee. I think the licence fee needs to be scrapped. And Casey Hopkins, really, you go on, bang on and on about the license fee, yet you go around doing tours with Alex Belfield. Katie, why don't you put a sock in it? You're a very stupid young lady. Well, you're not that young anymore. But anyway, I don't care for your nastiness. And I believe you're at Trump Turnberry at the moment, as you call it. You've obviously managed to grift your way in there. I've stayed at Trump Turnberry, but it wasn't Trump Turnberry when I stayed there. It was just Turnberry. I had a lovely time flying owls there. I had a wonderful experience with barn owls. Because everybody else wanted to play golf. And they said, well, if you don't want to play golf, what do you want to do? And I said, well, just something else. So they said, well, you can have a quad bike. So I had that for a while. And off I went in the woods and explored. I'm kind of used to quad bikes from, when I was young. But then I had, they said, well, you can spend some time with the chef. Well, I ended up with the chef until 4 a.m, drinking in the chef's kitchen. We did the chef's table, and I had a wonderful time with him. And then they said, well, what else would you like to do? And I said, well, what else have you got on offer? And they said, well, we can arrange some falconry. So I went and flew a few eagles and a few out, but it was the barn owls I enjoyed the most. So, but she's there ranting and raving and going on about Donald Trump and her mate, Alex Belfield. Well, he's been let out of prison early, and he hasn't learned his lesson. Standing there, getting himself more publicity. I don't think he knows right from wrong, this little rat. I think he needs to be, he'll find himself like Gary Glitter. He'll be recalled. If he's not careful, that little rat will be brought back to prison. And that is where he belongs, because he hasn't learned his lesson. It's clearly obvious by the way he behaved as he left the prison. Not a good man, Alex Belfield. So, horrible person. Okay, let's talk about something else. I don't really want to talk about Alex Belfield. He has absolutely no interest to me. Just a horrible person. Right. Okay. Any more questions before we're at 85 people. We're nearly back to where we were. So we'll wait for a few more of you to arrive. And thank you for all the likes. And please do sign my petition, which is nearly at 1,100. For the sloths, we must get the keeping of sloths banned, but I don't think Keir Starmer is going to help. Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, Queen of Thieves, they don't care about sloths. They don't care about anything, do they? They don't care about farmers. They don't care about pensioners. They don't care about, anybody really, do they? They just want to take. Let's tax them until the pips squeak, as one, I can't remember who used to say that. There was some Labour politician long ago. Right. What happened to the Ukrainian lads and Starmer? Well, that's sort of been silenced as a story, hasn't it? I shall have to speak with my Daily Mail contacts about that. They will have views. So I may have an update for you on that, perhaps on Saturday. So I'll speak to them and I'll be able to tell you more. Okay. What kind of birds are flying in the background? Well, they are very noisy seagulls. And they like at this hour to make a racket because they tend to fight one another in the air. I don't know what the little game is. Maybe it's, everybody was queuing up to buy the Super Mario game this week, weren't they? The seagulls, perhaps that's their version of Super Mario. They just fight in the air. I have a lovely friend called Mario who won an award. So Mario, if you're listening, I salute you. Well done. He got a wonderful award for all the lovely work he does for the disabled children. I'm not sure if what you're meant to call these children, but in this politically correct times, but these poor children who are, they're lovely children, and he trains them at rugby, and he trains about 300 a year, and they did a lovely program. I talked about it in the past on the BBC Radio Kent, and he is a fabulous man. He was the bodyguard to my friend Sheikh Khaled Al-Sabah during the Gulf War, and he lived with him in the Savoy Hotel. And Sheikh Al-Sabah was a lovely friend. He was at my 21st birthday party. He ran lots of things for Kuwait, and he went back into Kuwait as a baker. He wanted to fight, so off he went. He Sheikh Al-Sabah is one of the most sophisticated, lovely men you could ever spend time with. He used to live in South Kensington. I've not seen him since a party at Christie's a little while ago but we had some very, very fine dinners because he loves very, very good red wine. I think the most expensive bottle of red wine I've ever consumed was with him, and I was very shocked at how much it cost. But I was a student at the time, and I thought, well, that's more than the salary I'm going to get when I leave university. The starting salary at any company. I was like, oh my God. Anyway, Sheikh Al-Sabah is one of the most generous and kind people, and he gave me some wonderful Harold Nicholson diaries for my 21st birthday, and I still have those, and they're signed copies and beautiful books. And he's a very, very generous, kind man, and great company, and very, very knowledgeable on history. And we had many a great dinner together. So weirdly, Mario was his bodyguard. So Mario lived with him. So what a strange connection. And then Mario knew all about all the places in London where I used to go. So, sadly no more. Mockham's, which was run by my lovely friend, late friend, Philip Lawless, whose funeral I took Barbara Minto to only maybe 2 years ago now, I think it is. And we all miss Philip and Mockham's. And Philip was the manager of Scott's Restaurant when it was blown up twice by the IRA in 2 weeks. And they kept the restaurant going. They said, we will not let the IRA beat us. So when you talked to me earlier about the riots in Ireland, I think one must be defiant, like Margaret Thatcher was. And if people try and terrorize you, stand up to them. And I think those Filipino people in Northern Ireland, they shouldn't have to put a sticker on the door saying, we're Filipino, don't attack us. Because how dare these people go around attacking people? Shame on you. It's absolutely disgraceful to attack people's homes. You shouldn't be attacking people's homes. As I said earlier on the program about the McCanns, whatever we think of the McCanns, you shouldn't go and harass them on the doorstep. That is why I think Julia Wandelt, or whatever she's called on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, she could be singing Red, Red Wine for all we know, but she won't be drinking red wine because she's in prison, but where she deserves to be, in my view, as does Karen Spragg from Cardiff, her of the Crocs. But we should not be terrorizing people in this age. It is not correct. And, the problem with this Donald Trump era of politics, I am very anti the turf and the woke and all the rest of it. I'm with J.K. Rowling on all of that. But we don't need to incite. And this is what's going on in Los Angeles, and this is what's going on in Northern Ireland. This is very, very dangerous. Having to have people have their nationality stuck on the door. That's what the Nazis did. The Jews, they put your star on. Not correct. Absolutely wrong. We must be tolerant, and we must have some calm. Calm your nerves, calm yourselves. And, California, I had a friend on the phone earlier from Los Angeles. He lives in a very smart part of Los Angeles. He said, there's no great problem here where I am. But he said, I don't go to the areas where this is going on. But he said that this Gavin Newsom, and I knew Gavin when he was mayor of San Francisco, and I know Gavin's sister very well, Hillary. You would never have heard of Hillary, and the Plump Jack Winery and the Balboa Cafe and the Matrix Bar. I loved the Matrix Bar. It was my little favorite place. And, one evening he crashed his car outside. He's completely out of control. He is not fit to be president, and he never will be. He's lost the plot. Gavin Newsom needs to get, and I want Gavin Newsom to focus on one thing only. Obviously, he's got his problems with Trump right now, but I want him to sort out what's going to happen with the clemency for the Menendez brothers. So I'm on the case with that. So I do bombard him with messages, but he doesn't reply to me anymore because he's far too grand and important. So anyway, right. Okay. Right. There's 110 of you here. So we're doing quite well at getting you back because I stupidly turned you all off. or my having to go elsewhere turned you all off. Yes, Trump is a game show host who can deliver the scripts. I totally agree. And there was a fascinating article today in the Daily Telegraph about Donald Trump's overuse of mobile phones. Anyway, that's a quiz question, so I won't go there yet. But most presidents don't use mobile phones because of the security. He'll talk to anybody. He even talks to people on unknown numbers. It's a very stupid thing for a president to be doing, you know. And the same thing happened, you know, with old Starmer. He had to change it. And, you know, well, Starmer, who knows what Starmer's up to with his little fire starters. There we go. So we'll leave that at that. Did I ever frequent the 100 Club on Oxford Street? I can't say I ever went to the 100 Club. No, I've never been there. We've got Nicola Crompton. Hello, Nicola, the lovely Nicola. I hope you're doing well. And I miss you from PJ's. I miss everybody at PJ's. I'm told reliably by my sources that everybody at PJ's is doing well and that the lovely Peter is back from South America. And, you know, there's obviously Sean, who's got a new dog. He's now got 3 dogs. And Mr. Tilly and Bungalow Bill and all the others. So PJ's and Fulham Road, if you need a bar to go to, a little restaurant, go there. And Owana is the most lovely lady. She's the manageress and she runs it very ably. And it's a fabulous bar that my, you know, godmother Barbara Minto always compares to Cheers. She thinks it's a bit like Cheers. It's a jolly place to go. You never know who you can end up talking to, and you know you get a good drink because they do proper measures. They don't do sort of stupid things where they pour it in. They just free pour, which is much better than anywhere else. If you want a gin and tonic, it's a very good gin and tonic, and they know how to do it. They chill the glasses and all the rest. A good way of running a bar. But Brian Stein, the former owner, who sadly died, who was chairman of the Guards Polo Club, first Jewish person to be that, thanks to Prince Philip, the late Prince Philip also. He was brilliant at running it. He owned the Café de Paris on Leicester Square as well, and he was a hamburger success story because he had all sorts of hamburger bars long ago, and it was before anyone else really thought of doing it in Britain. And well, he made a fortune, and good for him. He was a self-made success story, and he loved antiques, and he loved planes, and he loved polo. He had probably 100 polo ponies, maybe 50 or 100. You know, he had his own airstrip at his house. He loved classic planes. He loved Harley Davidsons. You could talk to him about anything. I thought he was a fascinating person to spend time with. So Nicola is someone I met in Broadstairs and in PJ's. So we have a mutual connection with that. So there we go. And we've got David here. Yes, David is a great supporter of this channel. Thank you, David, for your arrival. Yes, it's lovely to have you all. We've got Lois, who's another huge help. Lois is very, very helpful. And we've got Fiona, who's another big supporter. You like Trump. You met Ivana at the Dorchester Club at the time of her divorce. Well, she was probably with Liz Brewer because Liz Brewer was her publicist in London. So Mrs. Brewer was the reason I met Ivana. And Ivana was a lovely lady and very, very fascinating. I didn't know her very well. I met her for a few seconds. I'm not a friend of hers or anything, but Mrs. Brewer has represented Shirley Bassey and Ivana Trump and all those people, and she's done a good thing. Nutcracker agrees with Sonia Poulton. The Julia Wandelt enablers are a bit icky. Hope they get called out after the trial. Well, Sonia Poulter is Poulton or Poulter or whatever she's called. I have to say, she's an extremely rude woman. Yes, she gets herself on Good Morning Britain and whatever else, but she was very rude to me, so I don't like her. not my cup of tea. She's a busybody. She's like Carol Ann Lee, who wrote the White House Farm nonsense. The two of them are of the same breed of busybody. They don't actually. I don't think they actually know a fact from a tea bag. To be honest, that's where they stand. I'm not a great fan of Sonia Poulton. She seems to she likes the attention a little bit too much, does old Sonia. So no, I'm not a fan of hers. I came across her at the crime conferences where I spoke a couple of years ago, a couple of times, and no, I wasn't a fan of Sonia. No, I don't think she liked me either, so it doesn't really matter, does it? You can't like everybody. I like most people. I get on with most people, but some people you just immediately go, "Hmm." And I sent my father something about her, and he went, "No, thank you, not our kind of person. No, don't like her. She is not on the list. She's on the list that won't be missed. No, thank you." Her and Carol Ann. And my father was more knowledgeable about Carol Ann because Carol Ann wrote the Pottery Cottage murders book. And obviously that occurred in Derbyshire, which is where I was born and where my father grew up primarily. Um, and the Pottery Cottage murders, she got it completely wrong. Her analysis is a load of old rot. It talks a load of old nonsense. Her use of sources is not very quality. A fact is not a fact until you've proven it's a fact. Think back to Patricia Highsmith. Okay, Patricia Highsmith was a mad lesbian who carried snails around in her handbag because she preferred them as friends to humans because she was totally nuts. But she did write The Talented Mr. Ripley and many other wonderful works. Great writer. If anyone else is sending any books, Patricia Highsmith, I'd love some Patricia Highsmith because I thought I'd find it down here because of these markets, because she did write quite a lot in France. So Patricia Highsmith, I'd have thought that the junk stalls would have Patricia Highsmith, but they don't. So it was called High Lawn, The Talented Mr. Ripley, I think in France. I think it had a different name. It's a bit like various books, like the Agatha Christie book that we can't say the real name of. 10 little, no, not allowed word. Of course, and now it's and then there were none. So, and I did watch Miss Marple the other evening. I couldn't sleep. I've been bitten alive by these dreadful midges, mosquitoes, whatever you call them. In Scotland, it's midges, and the midges, but down here it's mosquitoes. So I couldn't sleep, so I did watch an episode or two at Bertram's Hotel with the lovely Joan Hickson, and you can't beat Joan Hickson as Miss Marple. The replacement, I don't remember what her name is, the ITV one. Oh my God, load of rubbish. Absolutely useless. She's just like something from Coronation Street. She doesn't have the gravitas of Miss Marple. Miss Marple was a sort of busybody who'd sit there with her knitting, and all the time she'd actually not be knitting, she'd be watching. And that's what Joan Hickson could portray, which was what Agatha Christie created. This ITV woman, I can't remember her name. She just looks like a stupid woman doing a knitting. She doesn't look like she's actually got any capability of solving a crime. I don't think it works. It doesn't work, the ITV version, I'm sorry to say. I don't know if you know the name of her, but there we are. Yes, she had snails in her handbag, and there were other people who of that era who wandered around with anteaters. All sorts of bizarre people wandered around at that age. So people had all sorts of strange pets. And of course, when the Second World War arrived, where my grandfather had a home in Derbyshire, there was a place called Ryber Castle, and it was a zoo. And because they couldn't feed the animals, they just let them all out. So around there, it's full of wallabies. And the same in Henley upon Thames. And of course, that is why Russell Brand's dog was able to maul the wallaby to death. And of course, my friend up there in Henley on Thames, well, she lives just outside, um, Lady McAlpine, her late husband, Sir William, who was the man who saved for the nation the wonderful Flying Scotsman train. And I used to love going to his house because he had a full-size railway. He bought station boxes. He was like the Fat Controller, and he openly called himself the Fat Controller. And there he was in his funny little suits, which were kind of not. He could have had them made a little bigger, I would have said, because they looked like he was about to explode. And this lady was his second wife. The first wife, well, the less said, the better. Very unfortunate situation. We won't go into that, but Judy, Lady McAlpine, she's continued the legacy. She continues to run the zoo, and they've got all sorts of amazing animals. I used to love going to visit their house. Fawley Hill was the name of the house for their little summer parties, where they'd have helter-skelters and steam locomotives and those traction engines, all these beautiful things, and people would come from all over the country to bring these things. But the animals were all let out of the zoo, which is why we've got weird areas with loads of parakeets. Everybody said it was Keith Moon who let all the parakeets out. It wasn't Keith Moon. It was the war. Let's be honest. Hyde Park is full of parakeets. You go to the bit by the statue of Peter Pan, and there's all these people selling bird seed. They're all Albanian or whatever they are, or Romanian or something. And they try to sell you for £5 a bit of bird seed. And then the bird lands on you. Well, you don't need the bird seed. You can take whatever you want. You do it yourself. You don't need to pay these idiots. But then you go to Putney. Putney in London has the parakeets as well. Lots of parakeets in Putney. They do. And Broadstairs, loads of parakeets. And then one year I was in San Francisco, and one of the films was called The Parrots of Telegraph Hill. And Telegraph Hill, of course, is the hill where they celebrated the work of the firefighters who saved, bits of San Francisco after the earthquake of, I can't remember if it was 1909. I may be incorrect. Please correct me if I'm probably wrong. I don't know why 1909 came into my mind, but it did. So it's called the Coit Tower. It's shaped like a fireman's hose. And that hill, they filmed all the parakeets. It was called the Parrots of Telegraph Hill, and it was a lovely little film. I enjoyed it because it was something positive for a change, a bit about nature. We all love the Attenboroughs and all of that and all their good work. I think we're less keen on Chris Packham, who is doing a lot of damage to the countryside with his TV show, from what I gather, from what I've read in newspapers, putting down all these roads over wildflower meadows. Nor to you, Chris Packham. You are a bit of a pest. Not a big fan of you. But I do like all the other wildlife presenters. I think there's loads of great people out there making wonderful films. And I have all these ones I follow on the Twitter. And they take pictures of owls, and they take pictures of, all sorts of birds. And the photography is fabulous. And when I used to be involved with my friend Richie, who is he runs the marketing of the International Fund for Animal Welfare. Please support the International Fund for Animal Welfare. It is a good charity that actually does a lot of good for all sorts of animals, particularly elephants. And I love elephants and giraffes and whales and all sorts of things. It started out in Canada to save the seal long, long ago, when they were clubbing the seals to death, which was a nasty, evil thing to do. There's absolutely no need for that. And, they used to have an annual party at the Natural History Museum for the wildlife photographer of the year. And, the photographs were so glorious. It's amazing. And the amount of effort it takes for a photographer to capture a bird. We're all there with our stupid iPhone going snap, snap, snap. which I admit I don't do very often. I've kind of given up on social media, other than Twitter. I can't be bothered with the rest. It's just ridiculous. It's just too vain and silly. I know it's useful for promoting things, and I should do it, and I've been told I must do it, and the rest. But I don't want to do it myself. I'm not like Donald Trump, who's on it all the time. Um, but you know, these people who photograph nature to get one little shot, they could be there for 12 hours lying there waiting for the hare to leap or whatever happens, or the little bird to capture something else, or whatever happens. That is what it is. Lisa says today has been upsetting. Well, I'm very sorry you're upset, Lisa. I don't know why you're upset, but there we are. I didn't read. These messages are coming in thick and fast because there's rather a lot of you, but you've been upsetting. There was someone who's died. Oh dear. I'm very sorry for your loss, but I don't know where the message is because I can't see it. Well, Lisa, I'm very, very sorry for your loss. Your cat has died. Oh dear, Lisa. Yes, you've been writing to me about your cat on Twitter. Yes. So yes, your poor cat. You sent me a photograph of your cat. I'm very, very sorry to hear the poor cat has passed. But I hate the word passed. Actually, you shouldn't say passed. Charles Brandreth would correct me for that. The word past is not a good word to use, but your cat is now in a better place, Lisa, and think of the good times. Think of the good memories you had with your cat, and celebrate the life of your cat. I can't remember what the name of your cat is, but because I don't have any social media in front of me. But your cat, we raise a glass to the memory of your cat.
I love the cat.
Are you going to raise a glass to the memory of the cat?
I saw
the memory of the cat.
Yeah, beautiful.
So Min says your cat was beautiful, and I say your cat was wonderful. I'm not a cat person generally, but I don't mind some cats. But I think you obviously treasured that cat and loved it. So there we are. I think the best thing to do is remember the good times. So we think of you. Sorry for your loss, Lisa, says Joyce Grove. And we all agree in the sentiment, and we wish you, good memories of your lovely cat. There we are. So Nutcracker says Katie Hopkins is a Belfield cheerleader. Yes, Nutcracker is completely right. She allegedly visited him in prison. She didn't allegedly visit him. She was visiting him all the time by the sound of it. That is what Katie Hopkins does. Katie Hopkins, she once asked me to pay her a fortune to come speak at a debate. I had some very, very famous people at this debate, and I used to do them at a very smart place called 12 Hay Hill in Mayfair, private members club. And we'd have MPs, and this was all before the lockdowns. And it was a nice thing. I used to have a debate. It would be on Brexit, or it would be on the art markets, or property, or whatever it was. And we'd have a panel, and we'd have Gina Miller, or we'd have, an Conservative MP and a Labour MP, and we'd have a mixture. I could get anybody. I could get all sorts of people. She was the only one who said, I want £5,000 for her. I need a first class ticket from Devon, and I need a room in Claridge's. She's very ambitious, given who she is. She was just a bit part extra on The Apprentice, who ended up being photographed having sexual relations on a gate in a field by the Sun newspaper. And that is a really ugly photograph. I don't know if any of you remember that photograph, but she was dismissed from the army for all sorts of rubbish. She was thrown out of Australia during the lockdowns because she was very badly behaved. Shouldn't have been there. She's trying to be all Mrs. MAGA now. She latches onto any old thing. She got sued by the horrible woman who I don't like equally, but they're both mouthpieces. That Jack Monroe, who's a girl called Jack, but she might be a man, she might be a woman, she might be a whatever. Whatever day of the week it is, she changes it. Sorry, you're not allowed to call her she. Sorry, I stand corrected. Her pronouns, but I actually say I stand with J.K. Rowling. I don't need to be told what to call you. You're either a man or a woman, and you were born a woman, so get over it. There we go. And I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but you are one thing or you're the other. You can't be a bit of both. But if you want to be that, it's all very fine. But don't ram it down everybody else's throats like this Jack Monroe. An idiot woman who had to go. I got into a row with her separately because she had a go at Jamie Oliver, and Jamie Oliver and I ended up corresponding about this because he wrote a book saying how people could afford, make affordable meals. That is a lovely thing to do. And now there's a wonderful man, and everybody should read a copy of this book. I came across him also a few years ago. He's called Miguel Barclay. He teaches people how to make a meal for £1 a head. £1. I think most people can afford to do that. But no, she had to go at him as well. Oh, she can do it for 30p. She's mad. And then she took a little deal from Sainsbury's. She's a total hypocrite. She is a well, I don't know what she is now. She just bangs on about. At least she's kind of been silenced. But anyway, that's a problem. But she and Katie Hopkins had a legal suit, and she won against Katie Hopkins, so she did get quite a good payout for that, I believe. But quite frankly, complete hypocrite. Her parents, I think the father had an OBE. Oh, she makes out that she's working class, and she was a firewoman or a girlfriend, lover, whatever it was a firewoman, or. And she couldn't live. She had to live on the benefits, and she couldn't feed the child. And what a weirdo. Anyway, I don't like Jack Monroe. Whatever Jack Monroe does, and the publisher had to apologize for half the things in the latest book because they were dangerous. She said, "Don't buy a tin opener. A tin opener costs about 50p." She said, "Use a hammer and a bit of and a what do you call it? A screw opener. I forget what you call them. Screwdriver." Well, that's dangerous to open a tin. It's just a stupid idea. Why don't you just buy the 50p tin opener? In this house, the corkscrew is kaput. I've just managed to open the wine, but it's not very safe to do it that way. So we have to get a new corkscrew because, quite frankly, the plastic thing is broken. It's useless. There's no point injuring yourself for the cost of something that costs $1 or 50p. Is there? You may as well buy a new one, or you can buy a decent one if you really want. But corkscrews, cheap ones, are perfectly fine. But there's no point using a hammer and a chisel and whatever she was proposing. Oh, she has some very strange ideas, that one. Absolutely awful woman. So there we go. I didn't expect to be talking about Jack Monroe. The girl called Jack was one of her names, and then she was a woman, then she was a man, then she was a woman, then she was something else. I don't know what. She's LGBTQ plus XYZ plus ABCRQ 1 2 3 4 5 6 9 10 11. You don't know what's coming next. Like the dragon, really. The dragon of Broadstairs, another nutcase. Right, okay. Good morning to Trevor. I don't know where Trevor is, but he's saying good morning. I suppose you're either saying I'm moaning or you're saying good morning. But you were on the program earlier today with Ron Swanson commenting because I did respond to you. So I'm suspecting you're in England. So you're saying about moaning. Okay. Do I prefer a cork or screw top wine bottle? asks Mr. Balding. I still think a cork is a much better thing to have, but of course, cork has been very diseased, and that is why people have moved over to the screw top. It makes it much easier for people to get into. People who struggle, it's bad for them. And thank you to Sandy D, who's just given me £3.99. That's very kind. I suppose that'll pay for a corkscrew, won't it? £3.99 from Sandy D. I think Sandy D's a new entrant. Thank you for your picture as well. I don't know why you're giving me £3.99, but that's very generous of you. Right. Could pay for a corkscrew or a glass of wine. In fact, I think a glass of wine here is about £4 in the local bar. It pays for about one glass, £4, whereas in England, a glass of wine starts at about 7, I would think. And of course, today, Rachel Reeves, yet again, the pub industry. I was listening to Radio 4 this morning, and, all these pubs have had to say, Fuller's being one of them, they've put the prices up by, 15, 20 pence. You remember when they came into power, and good old Rachel from accounts said, "Oh, I've cut the price of a pint by 1 pence." Do you think anybody cares about 1 pence off the price of a pint? But they do care about, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50p, because it starts making you think, why don't they go to Tesco and just drink at home? And then the pub suffers. Because as the publican owner today said, I didn't know him. I've never heard of his chain. I don't know where his pubs are, but he said, pubs are something we need the entire economy to do well, because people only go to the pub when they can afford it. It's an extra in most people's cases. Of course, the alcoholics and the people who are lonely and don't have anywhere else to go and don't have anything else to do will go to the pub. But the majority of people, you go to the pub when you think, well, I can afford it, because there are other priorities for people with families and children. They've got to feed the children first. They've got to put the petrol in the car. They've got to, pay for the electricity bill, the gas bill, and all of this has gone up. Thank you, Rachel from accounts. You're not very good at accounting, are you, Rachel? You're not actually very good at anything, are you, Rachel? You're a nasty piece of toe rag. But he said, we've had to put up the price. The price is accelerated so fast. But he said COVID was the best thing to happen, because once COVID came in, people didn't get to go to the pub. So the minute it was over, they gained all the customers back. But in the time since, in the last 5 years, your £3.20 pint has now become £6.80 or whatever it's become. In London, it's £9. I believe the average is about £6.60 now. So, 5 years ago, the acceleration of the rate of the cost of a pint has become ridiculous. So, whereas you could have had 2 pints, you get 1. And meanwhile, these poor pubs, they used to have to pay, £5-6 an hour to people. The rate of pay for someone working in a bar is around about £13 an hour. So it's more than doubled. So the publican is losing money. This is why 80 pubs are closing a month. 80 pubs and restaurants close a month in Britain. And the supermarkets, meanwhile, they get subsidies from, their suppliers to sell their booze cheap. So what are you going to do? You're going to go out to this expensive pub, or are you going to go and buy some beer and invite your mates round and have them at your house? This is why pubs are dying. And that's very, very sad, because pubs are part of the community. And I don't like the destruction of pubs. I especially didn't like the burning down of the Crooked House pub and the one in North London that got demolished by the nasty builder who was made to build it back up. There's also one in Lancashire, which they did the same. They thought they could just knock down the beautiful old Georgian building. Well, they're being made to build it back up. I hope they bloody well get on with it. Shame on them. You don't go around destroying history. History, whether you like it or not, the past is the past, and put a sticker on it and say, oh, contextually, this wasn't correct, but this person also did many good things, like the man in Bristol who was the slave trader, who also built museums and schools and whatever else he gave to the community. Contextualize it, don't destroy it. And if a pub's called the Black Swan, you don't need to change its name, because there are black swans out there. Just because it's got the word black in it, it doesn't mean it's offensive. So in my view, enough is enough with all of that as well. But with the pubs, go and support your local pub, because if you don't, you'll lose it. And then you'll start moaning about it. This is always the case. I've seen it so many times. All these people go, oh, well,
Save the pubs.
And then once it's gone, they go, oh, what a shame it's gone. Well, if you'd gone there and supported it in the first place, instead of going off to Pizza Express because it's cheap, then you wouldn't have lost it, would you? So support, and remember that it's better to have the community asset that has been there for hundreds of years. So there you go. That's my little rant on that topic. I wasn't planning on that, but here we go. Right. Right. Okay. With regard to Marilyn Monroe, I'm not quite sure, Lisa, what Marilyn Monroe has in this context, but you think it was awful what happened to her? Well, Marilyn Monroe probably met a strange end, but I'm not an expert on the topic, so
Suicide.
I would say that the conspiracy theories are all out there, but there we go. I don't really wish to go down that rabbit hole myself, so I'll pass on that one tonight, but there we are. What's with the landlords responsible for their staff getting offended by something they hear from customers? I don't understand the question, but there we are, so I'll pass on that one. You don't know where you'd be without your Friday night boozer, says Adam Forbes. Well, I think it's good that you support your local boozer. The local pub was a community hub, says Wendy Terry. Yes, I would agree. And, in Broadstairs, the Magnet, which wins lots of awards all the time. Well done to Nikki and Will and Sam and all the people that work there. They run a pub where people can go in the daytime and they can join a knitting group or a book club or play the piano group, or like the lady who only drank tap water, she'd come along and sing and join in with the singing, but she didn't drink alcohol, but they didn't mind her being there, and her house was too cold, so she was sitting there, which is no problem. What do you think is a respectable amount to leave as a tip for a nice meal? Well, I think most people really would leave about 15%. I think that is the correct amount in the modern era, because the wages are not enough. So they should be leaving around about 15%. Americans leave about 25%. So I think 15 is a reasonable figure. 10% is not enough, and shouting in the background, I don't agree. Have I received any mini cheddars yet? No, I haven't got any mini cheddars. No. No mini cheddars. I've still got Yorkshire tea that my friend kindly sent me. But I do miss the mini cheddar, and they don't sell them anywhere here. It's impossible. Right. Okay. Well, anyway, I can't remember where I got up to on my little thing. Right, okay. Well, we didn't get to talk about Michelle Mone, the old Mona.
Boring.
Please don't shout in the background. This is my program. Thank you. No, sorry. I have to control my program, and shouting in the background. This is not question time. I don't have other people interjecting. I'm speaking, and that's the way of the world. So that's what we get. The light has gone rather weird, but there we are. Oh dear. I think we're getting some kind of shadow. Now I look like Donald Trump, but there we are. Let's try it this way. That might be better. Yes, that's probably a little worse. Right. Okay. Well, Michelle Mone. So Michelle Mone is actually a very interesting person in my view, because Michelle Mone has had an amazing rise to fame and fortune, and now she's had an amazing fall from grace. I think Michelle Mone is a very relevant person to talk about. £232 million of taxpayers' money. That's a very huge amount of money. Okay, she's not quite in the league of Bernie Ecclestone in her disgrace. 700 million. Shameful little rat that he is. But this little rat was elevated to the House of Lords by David Cameron, along with Karen Brady, another of his little choices. Says a lot about David Cameron. Can't stand the man. Absolutely awful. Not a good prime minister. Caused Brexit. Didn't even bother to campaign. Too busy, living it up. He's too busy in Ibiza, dancing around with his silly little wife. Honestly, not a good person. And, this was why the Conservative Party has declined. Bringing in people like Baroness Bra, as she became known, is not a good thing. The lady moan. The lady moans too much now. Her name is rather an appropriate one. And, all these pictures of her with champagne glasses and with the fatty husband, Doug Barrowman, the new one. They are the most disgusting people. And I knew of her before she became all of this, because obviously she used to go to the Carlton Tower, and I used to spend a lot of time in the Carlton Tower having meetings. And I knew the management very well, and I'm still very good friends with the former management. Obviously, it's been renovated in recent years, but most of you won't know about this because probably never been there. But the Jumeirah Carlton Tower is owned by Arabic royals now, and it's been renovated substantially. And it used to have a wonderful restaurant called the Rib Room, and we used to go there all the time because it had a lovely trolley, and you could have roast beef. And Barbara Minto lived across the road in Cadogan Place, so we'd go there for cocktails, and we loved the sliders or the slitters. And Lady Min here loves a slider or a slitter, or whatever you call it, mini burgers. Mini burgers are very, very nice, and they were the best there. Then they had a little terrace, and you could sit there, and they had a wonderful bar, and they had all the gins that I liked. And I'd go there and have meetings in the morning, and we'd have lunches there, and the staff were wonderful, and then everybody knew you, and you could open a bottle of wine there, and then they'd mark where you got up to, and then you could come back and have it the next time, the next day or whenever you want it, because I lived around the corner. So they were very much, it was proper service. It's a bit like, other fine hotels of that type. And then now they've ruined it. They've put in some kind of Lebanese or Italian or some silly restaurant that's just fancy and pretentious and wrong. They should have kept the Rib Room. Anyway, I used to go there a lot. And Michelle Mone was often there because she lived around the corner. Or she stayed in the hotel, which she often did. and she had a lot of her business meetings there, and they had a lot of photo shoots. And she would walk past me, and I'd say good morning, and she'd say good morning, and then gradually we chatted, and she seemed very pleasant at first. And then one day, I had a person come along to meet me who was rather a bit more famous than her, because she wasn't that famous. She was just a successful businesswoman. She was written about, and she was very involved in the Labour Party back then. She wasn't originally a Conservative peer. She was from Scotland. She had a husband in Scotland and and children and all the rest of it. And yes, then she got rather above herself and came over, and I was having a lunch with a certain actor, Omar Sharif, and we were having a nice little meeting. And I'm still friends with Omar Sharif Jr., who is his grandson. He's also an actor, but weirdly, he converted to become Jewish. He's not Muslim like his grandfather, and he's gay, and he's an actor in Los Angeles, and he's a charming gentleman too. And I've had many a pleasant conversation with him. But the grandfather just said to me, I said, "It's an honor to meet you, sir." And he said, "Well, I'm just a simple man from a bedsit in Paris." He said, "I don't know why people are interested in me." And I said, "Look, you're a great actor. You've achieved so much. You've been in all these wonderful films, and people love you." And he said, "I don't get it." And he was really, really down to earth. He'd come to London to play bridge, and he and I were chatting, and then along comes Michelle Mone, and she went, "Can I have a selfie?" In her, admittedly, that wasn't a correct accent because she's Glaswegian, but I just thought, oh no, here we go. And we were having lunch. It was too much, and he just said, "It's very nice to meet you, young lady, and please come back after lunch and join us for a cup of coffee." And she didn't like that. Her face turned red. She was invited to come and join us. She didn't have to have a selfie. She could actually come and talk to him. She didn't want to talk. She just wanted a photo, because all she cares about is, look, you can see it here. There she is with a glass of champagne. It's me posing with my bra, my voluptuous, probably fake, whatever. She is all about the picture. That was always what it was about with her in the end. And it got worse and worse with her. And I have to say, I just thought, how rude. And that put me off her. And then that Cameron put her in the House of Lords. And then she went completely mad. She's definitely insane. She's completely clinically nuts. And then she married this Doug Barrowman, this tubby little man from the Isle of Man. As my father says, the Isle of Man, a rainy place for shady people. It never stops raining. It's on a rock. It's got these weird cats with no tails. Strange things, them. And everybody I know who lives on the Isle of Man, they're completely nuts. So I'm sorry if you're from the Isle of Man. I'm sure there's some very nice people on the Isle of Man, but I've never come across one. My friend's mother moved to the Isle of Man. She won't speak to me anymore because I don't use a thing called Telegram, which is what all these, crazy people, far right people use. She said everything else is being spied upon. She said, that's why I've gone to the Isle of Man. I feel safe here. There's no taxes. You can have this Telegram. And I was like, seriously? Completely mad. Anyway, Doug and Michelle, the lovely Michelle, live on the Isle of Man. They were trying to sell the Isle of Man house for about 25 million. They've sold one of the houses in Glasgow, where she obviously gave an interview to Hello magazine in which she claimed that Albert Einstein lived in her house. That was fake news. Total lie. Albert Einstein never lived in her house. So that was proven to be another. She's a fantasist. Then there was the incident with the Indian who she said, you're not good enough to have white skin. basically. You're taking the place of a white skin or something. And he successfully sued her. She had to pay out for that. She's an obnoxious, rude, loudmouth grabber. And when along came a pandemic that killed thousands of people, she chose to profiteer along with her nasty little chubby hubby, Doug, who pops out of his shirt like the fat controller. And, 232 million went their way. They're going to have to pay back at least 122 million. And of course, she's already complaining. She's got Mark Williams Thomas, that busybody ex-detective who was involved with the Nick and the Bully story, being a little PR for her. That program was a disgrace. Laura Kuenssberg program, total mess. All she does is go from bad to worse. Michelle Mone is an appalling person. The items were faulty for a start. So, Michelle, why did you do that? Why did you do that to poor people, ordinary people? You've got enough money as it is. You're just greedy and selfish. And then that photograph of you on your yacht in your swimming costume. Lovely photo. And I believe you bought a more expensive yacht since, but we all know about that. So I bet you don't have many friends coming on it. And good old Carol Vorderman, your old mate, she turned on you, didn't she? So that was the end of that. You were active in all the negotiations, according to this. You were involved in the entire supply chain. It's an absolute disgrace. Your PPE MedPro should never have ever been allowed to do anything. You shouldn't have been allowed near a bus ticket, love. Shame on you. Shame on you. 99.9% of the gowns should have been sterile. Of course, yours weren't. Out of 140 gowns that you created, 103 of them failed. So basically, you were a supplier of defective goods. You could have killed even more people with your defective goods. How bloody ridiculous you are. And you don't even have the dignity to apologize. You go on television and you keep digging the hole, don't you? Well, you can keep digging till you get to Australia, love, because that's where you should go. You should be deported. We don't want you in Britain. You are a dreadful, evil, nasty woman. And Doug Barrowman, you're a crook as well. You're awful. I don't care if you sue me anyway, because I think everybody knows that you're very unpopular and you won't win anything because you are now rejected. And shame on the British parliamentary authorities. Strip her of her title. She should not be a baroness. Remove her. Chuck her out of the House of Lords. This woman has no place. She's not a lady. She's a tramp. She's an absolute disgrace. Get her out. She must go. She is a disgrace who has stolen all this money whilst people died. That is so wrong. Her and, the Captain Tom daughter, you belong in the same cell. The pair of you should be locked up together for the behavior you've both illustrated over the pandemic. What appalling, disgusting, revolting, sickening behavior. People had to sit and watch as their loved ones died and they had to wave at them through the window. And you're living it up, la vida loca, on your yacht. I don't think anybody will ever forgive you, Michelle. I didn't mind you when I first met you, but I didn't really know you. But I saw you were a little bit flash, and you had lots of cash, and you were a bit brash, and you had your fancy handbags and your entourage, but you always said good morning, and you were polite. And I thought, well, self-made woman, well done her. Well, I was totally wrong. I was hoodwinked by you. You weren't a good person at all. You never were. You've always been a wrong 'un. Disgraceful woman. And as for you, Chubby, I never met you, Chubby Checker, Chubby Checker hubby, Doug Barrowman. Well, you've had all your scandals in Spain as well, so I bet you're a real class act, you are, sir. But I wouldn't call you sir. Actually, that's a little bit unfair to people who I should be respectful to. You don't deserve that. You should get yourself back in the gutter where you belong, Barrowman, Barrow boy, bog off, Barrow man. I am no fan of these two. These people mismanaged. She profited, as Sarah Burton says. She should be facing charges. Yes. The Metropolitan Police, where are you when we need you? Arrest her. Have that woman arrested because she has committed criminal offences, perhaps potentially. There are potentially criminal charges coming her way. Why don't you arrest her and at least question her? She should be questioned by the police at the very least. It is about time that she was properly questioned and properly dealt with. She is an unacceptable face of profiteering. She's like one of those people in the Second World War who was going around selling things under the table whilst other people couldn't have anything. And they were making huge, vast profits. That's what she did during COVID. Class act, Michelle, aren't you? Real class act. Surprise, surprise, if Scylla were still around, she wouldn't be having you as anything other than... You are totally unsurprising. Because you just have to look at the way you get photographed. You are all about you. And as for that mate of yours, Karen Brady, she should be treated the same. You know, her associations are just lowbrow. So all of these lowbrow people that David Cameron put in to the House of Lords just because they were women who were on television and, you know, made a bra or went on a program with Lord Alan Sugar, who seems to change his political mind with the wind, just like Michelle, who was Labour and then Conservative. And, you know, he's done the same all over the place. Next week, he'll be something else. You're a bit like Lee Anderson, aren't you? You know, are you going to join Reform next? I don't think even Nigel Farage will want you, Michelle. I bet even he'd say no thanks to you on this occasion because you're a bit toxic, aren't you, love? So please go and crawl under a stone because we don't want to ever hear about you once you've paid back the money. We want the money back. The taxpayer should be paid back. And then you should go under a stone and disappear forever. No one will ever forgive you, Michelle Mone. You have no comeback because you're a nasty woman who profiteered whilst people died and people couldn't even go and see their poor relatives and they had to wave at them through a window at care homes. You know, that is disgraceful. Anyway, that's enough on Michelle Mone. Michelle Mone is done for the night. Right. I think I might need to top up my glass briefly before I move on to the next bit. Just a second. Right. Apologies for the absence. And here I am again. So, yes. A certain someone has gone to sleep, so I think they're okay for the moment. How is the bird? The bird has disappeared. It will come back when it wants something. A certain someone encouraged it to come inside the building, which I didn't think was a very good idea, and it did make rather a mess. So we won't be allowing that again. But I was not in the room when it happened. So yes, you'd like some Steeple Times wine glasses. Okay, well, I'll ask my merchandising man who was meant to do all of that why he hasn't done that. I'll put that on my list. Okay, wine glasses. ST. Okay. Right. Okay, well, I'm not planning on banning anyone. I don't do the banning. It's not my department. I have other people who help out here, but I don't do the banning. Okay. You'd like a mega pint. Oh, a mega pint. Okay. You want some booze related things. Okay. Well, I shall ask him if he can do this because he has promised to do this. He's meant to do all sorts of things, but he never does. We talk about it and then I just have to keep banging on about it. I'm not very good with all this. I'm trying to make this light not be so annoying, but anyway, there we are. So yes, that was that. So Michelle Mone, we've dealt with her. Not a pleasant woman. Okay, well, this morning on Radio 4, they discussed with Lady Britton, who was married to Leon Britton, the politician, about the ending of the investigation by the IOPC, the police watchdog, into the gross misconduct charges against I don't know his Christian name, DAC Rodhouse, who was a male policeman, who obviously was involved in that debacle. It was one of the most costly and controversial Metropolitan Police investigations. It fell apart when, of course, this man called Carl Beach was proven to be a fantasist. His name was Nick during the investigation. He got an 18-year sentence for perjury and perverting the course of justice. Obviously, it all followed in the wake of Jimmy Savile, and there was the whole thing with this Harvey Proctor and all the rest of it. And obviously the Elm Guest House, which I have discussed extensively. I don't think the Elm Guest House was properly investigated, nor was Dolphin Square. And I have a friend at The Guardian who, well, he doesn't work at The Guardian as such, but he is a Guardian writer. He used to be, but The Guardian is changing its structure, but he's a brilliant journalist and courageous. And he investigated the MP scandal for the Telegraph also. But obviously we have very interesting views on the Elm Guest House and what went on there with the Iraqi people, the Iraqi man who ran it with his wife, who died a very strange death. But obviously with Leon Britton, nothing was ever proven. And he died without ever knowing he'd be exonerated. He was exonerated ultimately. And Lady Britton this morning on the radio talked about the awful time that she had and the awful time her and her daughters had as they watched him die. And he was in hospital most of the time of the investigation. And she's very upset that the gross misconduct charges have been dropped. She would have liked to see the evidence tested. She'd like to see this avoided again because she feels that it's too late for what happened with her and her situation, in her view. Anxiety and ruining of her the reputation was what happened as she watched her husband die. And their homes were searched in London and in Yorkshire. They also said, is there any newly turned earth in the garden? Because they thought that she'd been hiding things in the roses or whatever. I do a lot of gardening here, but I haven't been hiding anything in the garden. I don't have anything to hide. But, Unfortunately, there's no buried treasure. So if you want to come and rob the place, there's no coins in the garden. And I'll come to a huge thing in the quiz to do with the discovery of a huge amount of buried of treasure in the ocean. So there we are. That's another matter. But she just thought the whole thing was run with incompetence, and the 16th of June hearing, which was meant to go ahead, was cancelled because they decided that the evidence was all mixed up and not suitable anymore. This goes back to 2015, and it's very unfortunate. She said, "I have no faith in those who police the police. Watchdog is not a friend, it's a regulator. It shouldn't be considered such." She'd consider meeting them, the IPOC, she says. But what upset her was that because of all of this, all the obituaries to her husband contained the lies about the allegations. And, whatever we all think about the VIP abuse, and I believe it went on, in some instances, the people making the complaints were a pack of liars, such as Carl Beach, who was a fantasist, Nick. She thinks lessons need to be learned. My trust is very much dented. She said, grieving was impossible. All I did was firefighting. She said, in such a situation, if you find yourself in such, don't go near the internet. I think that's a good piece of advice to anyone in such a problem, because when you're falsely accused, and there are lots of falsely accused people out there, as we know, with Jeremy Bamber, the Menendez, they did commit the murder, but it was manslaughter. But Mark Alexander, Omar Benguit, all these people who I talk about, there's lots of people who, falsely are imprisoned or falsely accused, and don't go near the internet, because all it will do is upset you even more, because the false allegations will thing. Operation Midland, she said, was unacceptable. The IPOC said it's a highly regrettable outcome. Well, yet again, the Metropolitan Police prove that they don't do their job properly. Look at this Operation Grange. 13.5 million wasted. Madeleine McCann never found. It's absolutely shocking, isn't it, really? So that's my view on that topic. Do you have any thoughts on that topic or not? It's been swept under the carpet, yes. Abuse is unacceptable, but also being falsely accused of abuse is also unacceptable. I would say that is something we must bear in mind. When people are falsely accused, especially of abuse, my friends Neil and Christine Hamilton, I don't agree with them much about Europe or all of that, but I like Neil and Christine. They were falsely accused of the sexual assault of a woman who collaborated with Max Clifford. They were in Claridge's at the time having a drink, and this woman was eventually jailed for perverting the course of justice. She'd made everything up with the help of Max Clifford, and also about a poor old man in Essex. They couldn't be in Essex and Claridge's Hotel at the same time, for starters. They'd never met the woman. And, they were dragged through it all. And afterwards, you're still forevermore. You're always, there's no smoke without fire, say some people. And that's what the nasty thing that happens to people in this situation. Leon Britton will always be remembered for being associated with Carl Beach. Whether Lady Britton likes it or not, that's one of the stories that will be connected to him forevermore. Louis Theroux with the Hamiltons was hilarious. Yes, the Hamiltons are jolly people. Christine gave a speech at my 21st birthday, in fact. It was a very good speech. So that was jolly. Mud sticks, even if you're innocent. Precisely. That is a problem. And people who are falsely accused, my mother had a friend who was a sculptor, and he was falsely accused of sexual assault, rape, and sent to prison. And it turned out the woman, well, subsequently she did it again and again, and then they realized that this woman was making it all up. But he got out of prison, and still everybody was like, oh, well, him. It wasn't very nice. Some people, you never get over such stigma. And also, the way they treated that Andrew Malkinson, they don't even give compensation to these poor people who are falsely accused. It's rather like the people on the plane. They're going to offer 87,000 to each victim. 87,000 for a dead person. Does that compensate for the loss? That makes them worthless, in my view. It's not okay. 87,000 might be a lot of money for a year, but once it's gone, and it doesn't pay for the loss of someone's huge. What they could contribute in life, they could do all sorts of things. They could make millions. They could paint wonderful paintings. They could add wonderful things. So it's not about the money, but it's just about the fact that the sum is so insultingly low and immediately after a disaster. I don't think they should be talking money at the time when the grieving family just wants to grieve for a start. So there we go. It was a quick calculation. It does seem odd, says Ron. Yes, I totally agree with Ron. Okay, right. Well, anyway, that's that. I think it may be time to have a quiz. Would you like a quiz? Are you ready for a quiz or not? Would you like a quiz? Yes, please, says Dixie. Tina, yes. Right. Okay, right. Okay, well, we'll begin with the one we did yesterday. I did conclude I'd agree with you, but then I'd be wrong. And that was a good question, said Winston Churchill. So I just ticked off that page so we don't do it again. Thank goodness I ticked it off, because otherwise I'll start repeating myself, because anyway, I discovered I had 2 more quizzes, which I don't know whether I actually ever used. So anyway, I wrote 2 more today. I wrote 2 new ones. So I know these ones are new. The other 2 I put in the file, and well, if we didn't do them, they may come up again one day. So I'm up to 90 now of these. So we're nearly at the 100, which is very important, because this publishers will talk to me more about it once I've got to 100. So I need to do another 10 more. Well, another 9 more. And then we're ready to go with a book. So you might have a book by Christmas if you're lucky. If you're not lucky, equally, because you might not really want it. Okay, right. For question number 1, did 17-year-old Red Bull Junior racer Arvid Lindblad receive prior to his 18th birthday on the 8th of August 2025? What did he receive? It wasn't a car. It wasn't a can of Red Bull. It wasn't a Ferrari. It wasn't a shoplifting certificate. You've had this quiz. Have you really had this quiz? I don't think you've had this quiz, no. It wasn't. Well, no one's answered correctly yet, so I'll keep going. It wasn't a Ferrari. What did he receive? It wasn't a medal, and it wasn't a gun. You definitely didn't have this quiz because I hadn't finished it. Joyce Grove is the closest. So I'll give the point to Joyce. It's not a driving license, Joyce, but it's a Formula One super license. 18 is the traditional minimum age, but he has an outstanding ability and maturity, they say. So they gave it to him whilst he was 17. So there you are. So Joyce is close because it was a kind of driving license. It was a Formula One super license. Okay. In which year was Timothy McVeigh executed for the Oklahoma City bombing? Which year was he executed? 167 people killed, 684 injured, the deadliest act of terrorism in US history. The winner is TMTB of the point. It is 2001. It occurred on the 11th of June, 2001. You know, what a monster he was. He didn't act alone, though. There was another one, but I can't remember what happened to him. In which year, starring Pierce Brosnan, Jonathan Price, Terry Hatcher, and Michelle Yeoh did Tomorrow Never Dies premiere? Which year did Tomorrow Never Dies premiere? The James Bond film about the mogul planning a war between UK and China. It wasn't 1996, but Trevor gets a point. Trev gets a point with 1997. With which sport is Scott Cummings associated? Scott Cummings. Jane O'Keefe gets the point. Jane OK. I'm going to call you Jane OK. All right, just shorten it. Scott Cummings, of course, is involved in rugby union. So well done, Jane. He's Scotland. He's Glasgow Warriors. He is a lock. He has caps Lions 0, Tests 42, and Will Greenwood of the Telegraph says he is a big lump. Charming description. Who lamps people. I don't think you'd want to get in the way of Scott Cummings, would you, on down a dark alleyway? It sounds like he could be dangerous. So you wouldn't want to upset the big lump who lamps people. I thought that was a good description, so I thought I'd include that in the response. Okay, as of 2025, who is the executive chef? And I'm being attacked by the mosquitoes because the door is open. Get away. Who is the executive chef at the Ritz Hotel in London? What is the name of the executive chef at the Ritz Hotel in London, which has been voted the number one in the best UK restaurants for 2025? He's from South Shields. He joined in 2004. He was at Claridge's and the Berkeley Prior. 2 Michelin stars. It's not Marco Pierre White. It's not Ronald McDonald. It's not Gordon Ramsay. It's not Marcus Waring. It's not Michelle Roux. It's not Manuel. It's not Mikhail Cheese, whoever that is. Sandy D gets the point. It is John Williams. Sandy gets the point. Sandy D. It's John Williams, MBE. Let's have it correct. And he wears a 30 centimeter tall hat. And he's very into formality. He likes no sandals, no jeans, no sportswear. You need jacket and tie and all the rest of it to go in his restaurant. And he oversees about 80 chefs, I think. It's a wonderful dining room. I've been in there a couple of times. Lovely place. Right. What do Mata Hari, Noor Inayat Khan, Edith Cavell, and Elizabeth Smith Friedman all have in common? What did they all do? Matt Luke Ken gets the point. Well done. They were all female spies. Well, they were all spies, but they were all female also, but you didn't get that bit. But I'll accept the fact you said spy because I wasn't specific. I should have been more specific, perhaps, with the question. Okay. At what age did Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys die at in June 2025? What age was he when he died? He wasn't 86. He wasn't 81. Matt Luke Ken gets a second point. He was 82. Obviously, he was the genius leader of the family band. There were lots of dark secrets about the family. They began in 1962. Okay. How many series of Sex and the City were there between 1998 and 2004? How many series? The first person to answer correctly is Linz. There were 6 series. So Sex and the City were 4 female friends living in New York in their 30s. Sarah Jessica Parker, Kim Cattrall, who I did meet. Her husband made, I think they got divorced. He made stereos for cars, all sorts of fancy stereos. Kristen Davis and Cynthia Nixon. There we are. She tried to run as a politician, but she didn't get very far, the old synth. Anyway, there we are. Who starred as Padraic in Martin McDonagh's masterful BAFTA award-winning tragic comedy, The Banshees of Inisherin? Who played Padraic? I don't know how you pronounce it. Padraic or It wasn't J.R. Hartley. It wasn't Kermit the Frog. No. It wasn't the General. Who was the star of this film? It wasn't Michael Caine. The Banshees of Inisherin. Tina De Silva is honest. She obviously doesn't use the Google like some of you. But John Clifford gets the point. I'm not saying you're dishonest, but it was, of course, Colin Farrell, whatever you want to call him. So John Clifford gets 1 point. Well done to John. It wasn't Janet Evans. No, I don't think Janet Evans could play a man. Even she looks more like Janet Street Porter. Okay. Next question. What did Virginia McCulloch do for 4 years prior to her arrest in 2023? What did Virginia McCulloch, who lived in Essex in a place called Great Baddow? No, she didn't do OnlyFans. No, she didn't sleep in a tent. Well, she might have done, but I don't know. I don't know what she did because of the weird things she did. I don't know if she worked in a pub or stripped or was a teacher, but that's not the answer. What did she do? What she did. I need a bit more specific, Denise, than what you've given. Denise, expand. I can accept an expansion on Denise. She didn't look after homeless people, that's for sure. She wasn't a teacher, as far as I'm aware. I don't know what she did. She didn't retire. No. Well, Wits End, you also need to elaborate. What did she do after? What did she do between in the 4 years prior to her arrest in 2023? What did she do? Well, Wits End is correct, but it wasn't one. So the first person to say what she did, who did she do it to, and what did she do? Denise says stored. Stored who? I suppose Lip Smacker can have it. Well, Lip Smacker, I'll give you the point because I did try and give other people a hint. I did say, what did she do for the 4 years prior to her arrest? Well, she killed her parents, both of them, and then she kept them, their bodies, for 4 years. So that's what she did. So on her arrest, she told the police, cheer up, at least you caught the bad guy. She really was completely insane, this woman. I don't know why she isn't one of those, real lifers. She ought to get more than what she's just got. Imagine the smell. God knows. I don't know enough about it. I saw there was a review of a TV show. I believe there's a TV show on about it tonight. So if you want to watch the TV show, just go in the TV guide and you'll find it. Unfortunately, I don't have a VPN, so I can't watch it. But maybe tomorrow when my friend arrives, we'll be able to fix it. So, okay. In which 1980 comedy film did John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd star as criminal brothers? What was the name of the film? All I need is the name of the film. Matt Luke Ken gets another point. So Matt Luke Ken, you're in the lead. You've got 3 points. Everyone else has got 1. So you're in the lead. Of course, it is the Blues Brothers. Okay, in which Kent town, and this was somewhere Lady Min used to like to go. Lady Min?
Mm-hmm.
In which Kent town, as of 2024, might you find a hair salon on the high street named Toffs and Tarts? Toffs and Tarts. Where would you find it? Trevor. No. Joyce Grove gets it. Joyce gets the point. Joyce Grove. Second point for you. Of course, Toffs and Tarts is in Broadstairs. Lady Min used to like going to the Toffs and Tarts. It's an amazing name for a hair salon because it's memorable. Anyway, there weren't many Toffs, and I don't think there were many Tarts there. It was mostly...
Oh, it could be both.
It could have been It was mostly... elderly people and young people. There was no evidence of Toffs or Tarts in my
£20 for the
my experience. So anyway, but Joyce managed to get there before anyone else. So well done to you, and a couple of others knew it as well. So I think I probably mentioned Toffs and Tarts perhaps on a program. Right. Right. Well, the next question after Toffs and Tarts is, what does TERF stand for? TERF. I need the exact description of TERF. Think of J.K. Rowling if you need a clue. But I need the exact words, please. I won't accept anything other. It's not turd. Okay, trans exclusionary radical feminist says Lois. Lois gets a point. So Lois, you're now entering the game. Right, I've got to find a bit of space to put Lois in. So I need a new piece of paper. Right, so Lois now has a point. J.K. Rowling has tried to deal with these stupid idiots. Anyway, okay, in which English county would you find Brown Willie? Where's Brown Willie? Which English county is a place called Brown Willie? It's not Sussex. It's not Lancashire. It's not Durham. No, it's not Berkshire. It's not Sussex. It's not Suffolk. It's not Oxfordshire. It's not Northamptonshire. It's not Derbyshire. It's not my house, which is not a county. It's not Shropshire. It's not Somerset. It's not Yorkshire. It's not Hampshire. It's not Hertfordshire, nor Derbyshire, nor Dorset, nor Gloucestershire, nor Cheltenham, because Cheltenham is not a county. It's not Bumhole, that's not a county. It's not Derbyshire, it's not Essex, it's not Yorkshire, it's not Surrey, it's not Cheshire, it's not Wessex, it's not Dorset, it's not Cheshire. Denise gets the point. Well done to Denise. Denise, you I know you were cheated out of a point earlier because of speed, but Denise gets it. Of course, it is in Cornwall. So Brown Willie is a place in Cornwall. I don't know what goes on in Brown Willie, but Brown Willie is a place in Cornwall, spelled BROWN, new word, WILLY, not no E in the or anything, like some of these ones. Okay. How would one describe a racehorse that is more likely than evens to win? It's 2 words, and how would you describe that racehorse? There's 2 words for it, 2 short words. I need the exact words. Matt Luke Ken gets a 4 point. Of course, it's odds on. If you are more than evens to win, you are odds on favorites. So that's how it works. So simple question, absolutely easy one. Okay. In which year did the 107-year-old sex therapist Shirley Zussman die? Which year did Shirley Zussman, who was very into sex, die? It wasn't 2024, it wasn't 2022, it wasn't 2020, it wasn't 1988, it wasn't 2018, it wasn't 1987, it wasn't 1989. Adam Forbes, new entrant. Adam gets it. Adam F, 1 point. It is 2021. I can't tell you any more about her because I didn't make any notes. Sorry. I should have made some notes about her. Right. As of 2025, how many iPhones is President Donald Trump believed to have? How many iPhones does he have in his possession at any one time?
7.
7 is incorrect, and 8 is incorrect, 9 is incorrect, 20 is incorrect, 0 is incorrect, 4 is incorrect, 7 is incorrect, 8 is incorrect, and I'll accept one of 2 answers. It's not 23, it's not... well, Adam gets the second point because you've said 3. He has 2, possibly 3 phones. He rings anyone and everyone. He picks up even unknown numbers. He spends a lot of time calling up Piers Morgan, and they call him, and Nick Faldo, the golfer, and that's what he seems to like to do. Okay, completely mad. And now I've got all these insects crawling all over me because of the light. Lovely ants, absolutely delightful.
Wow.
Anyway, the next question. How old did model and actress Elizabeth Hurley turn in June 2025? And she stripped naked to celebrate this.
50.
The answer in the background, who is not meant to join
60.
in. Well, Mother Duck got there first with 60. The other one in the background said 60, but Mother Duck actually got there first. So Mother Duck gets a point. So 1 point to you. We don't include those in the background shouting anyway. Even though it's nice that they join in. Okay, right, your penultimate question. In which year did the rock that is Gibraltar cede to the crown? Which year did Gibraltar join Great Britain? It became Britain's fortress in the Mediterranean. Which year? It was not 1997, you know, where near. It wasn't 1456, you know, where near. It's not 1950s. It's not 1950s, no. Anyway, shouting in the background isn't appreciated because it's not helping the quiz. No. All of you, no. No, not 1877, not 1717. Though you are close. It wasn't 1897. No, I said it was 1717 was close. Alfie's mum says, let Min play the quiz. Well, she wants to play the quiz, doesn't she? But she's totally way out. She's not even near the answer. And the correct person, the first correct answer is Tina De Silva. Tina gets the point. Well done to Tina. Do we have a point for Tina already? No, we don't. So Tina's now joining the quiz. Right, Tina, 1 point. Okay, so... well, we have a final question. I think we already have a final winner, but okay. What woodland plant is also known as the maybells? What plant is known that grows in woodlands known as maybells? What is a maybell? What is its alternative name?
Bluebell.
The maybell. It is not a bluebell, no. No, it is not bluebells. No, a maybell is not that is not this name. Lip Smacker has the point. It's the lily of the valley.
Oh.
Lip Smacker. So Lip gets it. We did have a lily of the valley here in May, so that's why it's known as a maybell. So the winner of this quiz, of course, is Matt Luke Ken, who's got 4 points. Adam F is the runner-up because he has second 2 points, along with Joyce Grove, who has 2 points. Mother Duck Denise, Lois, TM plus B, you got one as well. You're on one. Trevor, or whatever your full name is. Jane O'Keefe, Jane OK, as I call you. You've got one. Sandy D, one. And Lynn's one. And John Clifford, one. And Lip Smacker, one. And Tina, one. And oh no, so Lip Smacker's got two. So Lip Smacker, actually, sorry, I've got you down incorrectly because I put you down twice. So you've got two as well. So you're a joint second. So anyway, well done to you all, and well done to our winner. I'm going to put a tick through the page so I don't come back and repeat myself. And I'll write Matt Luke Ken, winner. Now I've got a book. It makes it a lot easier, because then I can just tick it and I just turn the page, and I'm counted. That's number 87. And then we've got two others that I found today that I hadn't even put in the files. So I don't know whether I've even given you those. But anyway, right, you're going to get your final quiz of the day. It is 22:25, and then after that, it's probably time for bed. So first, I shall go and get myself a little extra. I think our friend is okay before she goes to bed. She's got quite enough there. I just need a little top up because...
Top up.
Unfortunately, I have to read out questions.
I need a little top up.
You don't need any for the moment. You'll have some when we've finished. This will go very quickly. So I'm only having a tiny amount, and then that's enough for one night. So, right. Okay. Right. This is quiz number 90. So we've only got to write 10 more before we get serious. So this is we're nearly there. There'll soon be a book. So you might have a book for Christmas, because it will take some time, because obviously it's got to be typed up, and that's going to take weeks. Let's be honest. But I will have a new computer to do that. So there we go. How much, right, question number one. All right, I need a piece of paper. Oh, I suppose I'll have to just...
Oh.
I should have asked people to send me notepads. These kind of notepads are so useful for this kind of activity. Right. And I don't have any. I should go to visit a hotel and just steal some. It's the best thing to do, because these things are brilliant for this kind of quiz. Bits of paper like that. It's better than having anything else. So, right, okay, next one. Post-it notes. I hate post-it notes because I hate the stickiness. And don't ask me about... I was involved in a legal case with 3M Corporation over post-it notes, so I don't want to think about post-it. I hate post-it notes with a passion. Can't stand the bloody things. I never want to see a post-it note ever again. I don't want anything to do with 3M Corporation. I've been through the courts with them, so not because of my actions, because of somebody else, but I was a director of the company. I think you all know who I'm talking about and what happened, but anyway, we'll talk about that another day. Now's the time for a quiz. So, right, how much did the UK personalised number plate 250 or 250 sell for on the 27th of November 2014, excluding the fees and the taxes? What was the price? It wasn't 1 million, no. It wasn't 2 million. It wasn't 500,000. It wasn't 2.5 million. It wasn't 1 million. It wasn't 2.5. It wasn't 5 million. It wasn't 125,000. And the prices of personalized number plates are collapsing because people don't view them to be very appealing anymore. My father always said they were rather naff anyway. It wasn't 250,000. It wasn't 50,000. It wasn't 60,000 or 600,000. It wasn't 100 quid. They are tacky, yes, I totally agree. They're good if you've got a business and you can advertise. We had the friends who had a jam factory, and they had jam 1, jam 2, jam 3, jam 4, jam 5, jam 6, and the whole car park was like regulated by the vans being all like that. Kind of worked for them. But no, I think the whole thing is a bit tacky. Right. The closest thus far is Audrey, but you're still a way out. And the other closest thus far is Enigma. So between Audrey and Enigma, work it out. If you don't work it out quickly, I will give them 0 points. So Audrey and Enigma both are in the range, but the rest of you aren't. Lois is now closer, so Audrey is now further away. It wasn't 3.5 million, no, Jessica, no, it's a little bit. No, 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 no. Audrey is getting closer. Audrey is the closest. Okay, well, I'll accept Audrey at 370,000. The price, actually, Audrey, was 400,000, but you're the closest, so we'll let you have the point. Right. Who was the main star? And I enjoyed this little film. I think I watched it in Broadstairs with, do you remember him? Finn, who lived in the house with me for a while. Anyway, I watched it with him, but it was a film called The Last Bus. It was about a pensioner who decided he'd go on a bus tour from John O'Groats to Land's End by bus, and he became a bit of a social media influencer. I don't know if it was a true story, but who starred as him? Yes, Lynn says Funny Finn, sorry. It wasn't Michael Caine. It wasn't Alfie's mum. It wasn't Anthony Hopkins. Denise gets the point. It was Timothy Spall. Denise, well done. It was a charming little film, and it was very pleasant. And lots of strange things happened to the poor man, and it was nice. His wife had died or something, and he went off on a bus. And I remember watching it with Finn. So there we go. Anyway, the less said about him, the better. With which sport is Jude Bellingham associated? Jude Bellingham is not Formula One. No, Audrey gets a second point. It is football. Jude Bellingham has been in the papers very much today because, he's England midfielder. He's known to be over-aggressive. He's known for his moodiness. He's been having an awful lot of temper tantrums with fellow players, and he kicked the water thing, and he's done all sorts of. He's a bit. Thomas Tuchel, the new chief, he's having a lot of trouble with him, but he is considered one of the best players. So it's a little bit of quid pro quo. You've got to give him his little right to have his temper tantrum because he's only a 21-year-old. So out of control, I suppose. Okay, in which year did construction of the most famous chapel inside the Vatican, the Sistine Chapel, begin? I need the exact year in which year it was the construction of the chapel started. It was not 1458 or 1984. It wasn't 1965. It wasn't 1276. It wasn't 1517. It wasn't 2018. Certainly not. No. Some of you do give some very strange answers, but Denise gets a second point. So we've got Audrey on 2 points and Denise on 2 points. 1473. It was finished by 1481. Obviously, it was painted by Michelangelo between 1508 and 1512. He allegedly loathed being forced to paint the ceiling by Pope Julius II, who wanted to punish him because he tried to flee Rome. It was a city he said he hated, and he said, "I lived a long and miserable life." So Michelangelo was a very unhappy man living in there and being forced to lie on his back painting that ceiling for that Pope. So Michelangelo, I didn't realize this, was a very unhappy man. Didn't know this until I read about it today. Sorry, just getting rid of an ant. Oh, the invasion of the ants. They're everywhere. The other day it was snails all over the garden. Today it's bloody ants. Oh God. Right. I hope they're not going to invade me too much tonight. Right. Which Irish poet? And I was watching a program about a murder case today, so this is the context I had it in. Wrote a dream of death. Who wrote a dream of death? A famous Irish poet. It wasn't Oscar Wilde. He wasn't really a poet. He was more of a playwright. Busted gets it. It wasn't it wasn't Edgar Allan Poe. It wasn't Paddy McGuinness. It wasn't, but it was. Oh no, Cormac. Sorry, I do apologise. Cormac gets the point. You were there first. William Butler Yeats, Cormac Wilkie. I'm sorry, you busted. You were beaten by them. By Cormac. I'm sorry to say it. You gave the full name, in fact. So that's why I wasn't looking. And of course it begins, I dreamed that one had died in a strange place, near no accustomed hand, and they had nailed the boards above her face, the peasants of that land. It was the last open page in Sophie Toscan de Plantier's book, found in the cottage next to where she was murdered in 1996. And I've been watching programs about Sophie Toscan de Plantier today because, my friend Nicola Tallant, she was one of the few people who dealt with the British journalist who, he was convicted in absentia in France of the murder of Sophie Toscan de Plantier. And then he died, and Ian Bailey was his name. He was a very strange man, and he liked making podcasts about all of this, and he liked getting into rows with people about it. And God knows what the truth is, but there was never any justice for Sophie Toscan de Plantier, murdered on Christmas Eve, or in the early hours of Christmas Eve. And her body was left in the rain. The police were useless. They didn't even cover up the body properly, so obviously all the damp got at it. So the evidence was contaminated. Everything was very, very strange about that case. And he was able to wander around the island until he collapsed last year and died. So I will do a program one day about Sophie Toscan de Plantier, and I'll try and get Nicola to talk to me, because Nicola met him on many an occasion. I obviously never have been there. It's terrible for her poor son. Her husband was a famous film producer as well, and she was a film producer, and that was her little safe place to go to. And she had been having an affair, but she'd ended the affair and all the rest of it. So, yeah, there was a huge gate. Alfie's mum says he was a nasty character. Oh, the interviews he gives, he's dead now, but what a strange man he was. And I could not believe the things when I spoke with Nicola about this. I didn't know much about this story, but she was murdered with a breeze block. They literally whacked her over the head, and literally her own parents, they couldn't the mother could, the only thing they didn't break was her nose. The mother could only recognize the nose. The rest of her body was just decimated by this, and it was so remote a location that it could only be somebody who knew how to get there and all of this. And he wrote all these articles about the whole case. And how did he know about what was going on? Like the two wine glasses on the side, but they were on the drying board. She could have had a glass of wine one day, washed it and put it on the thing, and then washed another. But he made out they were like two glasses of wine. Like there could have been she had her lover around. He was trying to cover up his tracks. He was an evil rat, and he was so keen to be going on about champagne bottles, and how did he know what was going on inside that house? And at one time he lied and he said he was delivering groceries to the neighbors so he could get up there. This man was extremely weird, and he'd had rows with the wife, but she protected him, and he'd been up all night writing, and and then he started selling things on the markets. And can you imagine what these poor locals must have thought? This is like lunatic who's accused of murder, and he's coming down to our market selling things. You'd like, I wouldn't go near his stall. You never know; he might poison you. Anyway, he's now dead, so there'll never be any justice brought against him. And the poor little son of hers, he must be in his 30s by now. He grew up without his mother. And okay, his mother had been having an affair, but she had ended the affair, and that's why she'd gone there just for a break for a few days before Christmas. And her husband, who was, Mr. Big in France, had gone to his country estate or whatever it was, and he wouldn't go back to Ireland. He wouldn't go to Ireland because he said he couldn't face looking at all of this. But he couldn't have been present, and nor could have the lovers. So this Bailey was the most likely suspect. Anyway, that's the case of that. But anyway, it was very interesting to hear at the end of this program that the last page of the book that was open was the W.B. Yeats poem, which ironically had the title of such, a dream of death, and then she died, and it's very sad. Okay, more cheerfully. In Northumberland slang, what does claggy mean? Claggy. Claggy. What's claggy? In Northumberland slang, because I've given you lots of Cockney slang, so now we're going to do slang from other regions. So it's not clogged up, it's not thick, it's not starchy, it's not humid, it's not muddy, it's not chewy, it's not small, it's not overcast. Jessica Laverty, and Laverty, sorry, not lavatory. Sorry, that's very rude. Jessica L, I'll put you down as 1 point. It means sticky. Okay, where in Kent might you find Dumb Woman's Lane? Where might you find the Dumb Woman's Lane? It's amazing what they call places, isn't it? It's not in Ramsgate. No, it's not Margate. It's not Peckham. It's not Orpington. It's not Trevor. It's not the Isle of Dogs. It's not Broadstairs.
Ramsgate.
We've already had Ramsgate, and it's not correct. It's not Maidstone. It's not Tenterden. It's not Bromley. It's not Felixstowe. It's not Michelle Mone's house. I don't believe she has a house in there. It's not Whitstable. It's not Dungeness. It's not I don't know. It's not Sussex. It's not Katie Price's crib, but it could be. It's not Rochester.
Broadstairs.
It's not Broadstairs. We've already had that, and it's not. But don't shout in the background. It is not Broadstairs. So anyway, Busted gets the point. It is Rye. Rye is the place. Near Rye. Okay. How many US $1 billion are the contents of the San Jose galleon said to be worth? How much is the contents of the sunken ship, the San Jose galleon, said to be worth? How many billion US dollars? Tina De Silva is close. Tina De Silva remains the closest, but Jessica Laverty gets closer. Right. If we don't get, and Lois Petsolve is also close. So, right. Okay. I actually need the correct answer now. So I've given you all a hint. Richie Dupe gets it correct. Richie Dupe. Okay. Of course, it's $17 billion. The it was sunk by the British Navy in 1708 off Columbia. It had 64 guns, 3 masts. It was the holy grail of shipwrecks. It had a crew of 600 men. Of course, they all died. 200 tons of gold, silver, and emeralds belonging to the Viceroy of Peru. It was launched in 1698. And they are planning on retrieving whatever they can retrieve. 17 billion is well worth retrieving, isn't it? So that's what they're up to at the moment. And they discovered lots of things in the last 4 or 5 days. So I was very interested to read about this because I'm interested in the Titanic, but this is a disaster site that they are actually going to go and bring everything up. Obviously, with the Titanic is considered very differently because, being more recent, I suppose, they don't want to disturb the graves of all these people who are basically buried at the bottom of the ocean. But because, this was so long ago, they don't really care. They're just going to go and get whatever they can get as much gold and jewels as you can. So they're going to be going and getting it all. So maybe in 100 years or whatever, they'll do the same with the Titanic. Who God only knows. But we won't be around to know. So there we are. Okay. Right. With which sport is Hugh Jones associated? Hugh Jones. What sport does Hugh Jones play?
Rugby.
Miss Marple gets it with rugby first. But the person in the background is not meant to be interrupting, but tends to do that. But of course, I should expect you to answer correctly, which would be rugby union. It's not rugby league, for example. He plays for Scotland, Glasgow Warriors. He's a centre. He's got caps, Lions 0, 58 tests. Will Greenwood says he makes line breaks and scores tries against the very best teams in the world. So he's rather popular with Will Greenwood. There we go.
Maybe it's out there being attacked.
It is not being attacked. And right, we've got shouting in the background about nothing. The birds like to fight on a night. Where was the magical storyteller? And he is an absolute gem. And author of Warhorse, Sir Michael Morpurgo, born on the 5th of October, 1943. Where was Sir Michael Morpurgo born? It was not India. Nope. And India again, no, it wasn't London, it wasn't Bradford, it wasn't the Isle of Wight, it wasn't Broadstairs, it wasn't Oxford, it wasn't Yorkshire, it wasn't India again. I don't know why you keep saying India, because it's not India. It's not France, it's not New York, it's not Penge roundabout, it's not South Africa, it's not Edinburgh, it's not Peru, it's not France, it's not London, it's not Australia, it wasn't in a horse box. It wasn't San Diego, it wasn't Glasgow, it wasn't Scotland, it wasn't the Channel Islands, it wasn't Watford. Audrey can have the point. You are in the correct county. So Audrey now gets into the lead. Okay, so yes, you got 3 points, Audrey. He was born in Hertfordshire. Of course, it was in St. Albans, Hertfordshire, which has a lovely cathedral, the St. Albans. I can't tell you much else about St. Albans. I did spend some time there once. I did used to know some people there. They were a little bit strange. Anyway, I believe he's just written a novel, but I haven't seen them in years. Anyway, the less said about them, the better. Okay, in which 1861 novel did Charles Dickens include the fictional character Abel Magwitch? Which book did he include Abel Magwitch, who obviously was a criminal who was involved with Estrella and Pip and all the rest of them? It wasn't Christmas Carol, no, it wasn't Oliver. It was Busted gets a second point, taking Busted into joint second with Denise against Audrey's first. Of course, it was Great Expectations, and he was on the criminal boats and he was all chained up, and he had quite a life, did old Magwitch. So, next question. In which year did London Gatwick Airport open? London Gatwick Airport. Which year? 124 vids is close, but not correct.
63.
Shouting in the background is incorrect. Miss Marple gets the point. Well done to Miss Marple. Good to have Miss Marple back with us. Thank you, Miss Marple. Yes, again, you get a second point, Miss Marple. I'm sorry, I'm missing out. I'm trying to write. It was the 30th of May, 1958. This is, of course, in Crawley, West Sussex. As of 2025, it covers 1,670 acres of land. It's the second busiest UK airport. Of course, EasyJet is their main hub. It's British Airways' second hub. I didn't write all that down, but I'm just remembering silly little extra details. Right. Right. In which year did Dazed magazine, known as Dazed and Confused until 2014, which year was it founded? The first to get it correct is Linz, 1991. Linz. You can have the point. Well done to Linz. Okay. Who founded the Anti-Federalist League, AFL, that later became the UK Independence Party, UKIP, in 1991? He was one of my university lecturers for a while. Strange man. What was his name? It wasn't Janet Evans. It wasn't Farage. Farage did not found UKIP. No, not at all. Farage came later to UKIP. So no, Farage joined UKIP. It wasn't Shirley Williams. No, she was Liberal Democrat. It wasn't Anthea Turner. It wasn't Alistair Crook. It wasn't a horrible man. Well, he might have been a horrible man. It wasn't Robert Kilroy Silk, but he was there at the beginning. There was old Mr. Kilroy Silk, of course, the TV host. But no, he wasn't. It wasn't Neil Kinnock. No, Neil Kinnock was Labour. Still is. It wasn't Anthea Turner. No. It wasn't Captain Birdseye. It wasn't Cilla Black. No, I don't think Cilla Black could have been capable of dealing with politics. She wasn't really. Her demeanour would have been a bit of a disaster. It wasn't Jeremy Healy. It wasn't Ian Bailey, the murderer we've just been talking about. And no, I don't think he was a bit busy in Ireland going around killing people, wasn't he? It wasn't George Galloway, but he did go and form another party with George Galloway subsequently, or he worked on one. It wasn't Prescott because he was Labour. It wasn't Rod Hull. It wasn't Margaret Thatcher. No, it certainly wasn't Margaret. It wasn't Neil Jenkins. It wasn't Del Boy. It wasn't Shaun the Sheep. It wasn't Bungle. Okay, well, you're not doing very well at this, are you? This is shocking. It wasn't the Mini Thatcher. It wasn't Dumbo. That was an elephant. It wasn't Gonzo. Well, that was, Gonzo Pictures and all of that. It wasn't Tony Blair, and it wasn't Zippy, and it wasn't Tenconi, whoever Tenconi is, I don't know. It wasn't Claire Mandel, but Jessica gets the point. Well done, Jessica. Second point for Jessica. It was Alan Sked. So Alan Sked was also a candidate for George Galloway's All for Unity party in Scotland. He fell out with every political party he was ever involved in, like all of them do. They all have temper tantrums, these kind of reform. Farage falls out with everybody, and so did the Sked. They fell out with the Hamiltons. They fell out with Gerard Batten. He was a complete nut. Then there was that mad woman. Oh, she's totally mad. I wrote an article about her. Oh, she was temporary. She was the temporary leader, the one with all the purple makeup all over her face. I can't remember her name. Oh my God, she was ghastly. And then there's Anne Widdecombe, obviously. You've got the grim people of the world, and there's a few sensible ones amongst them. And now they're having a little row about this Dr. David Bowl because he's a bit different to the rest of them. And they're having all of them have a little meltdown. And there's Richard, not so enticing, who loves this chlorinated chicken with his lovely Isabel Oakeshott, the Times dreadful woman. I've had a fair few run-ins with old Tice and unenticing, as I call him, and Waitrose Belgravia. Not my kind of person. Then, of course, there's George Cottrell, the cryptocurrency fraudster who's been paying for old Farage for years. He's only a little brat, and he was off with Georgia Toffolo, who's run off with the Brewdog Man. You couldn't make up this collection of clowns. Awful people. Okay, right. Right. Well, I didn't finish this quiz, so now I'm going to have to finish this quiz because I didn't have time. It takes me a lot of hours to prepare these quizzes anyway, so I'm going to give you one of the quizzes that I don't think I have given you, but it doesn't matter if you haven't. Right, you can have the final questions of that. So, in which year did Audrey Hepburn star alongside Gregory Peck in A Roman Holiday?
58.
Shouting in the background is not accepted because it's incorrect. So, right. No. Tina De Silva gets the point. Tina De Silva, new entrant. Right. It was 1953. So, there we are. In which year did Michael Redgrave star in the Oscar Wilde comedy The Importance of Being Earnest? It wasn't 1969, it wasn't 1955, it wasn't 1974, it wasn't 1975, it wasn't 1979, it wasn't 1954, it wasn't 1967, it wasn't 1971. I can't keep up with all this. There's loads of you. 1950. I sound like a betting person here, but I should learn to do it quicker, shouldn't I? It wasn't 1950, it wasn't 1981, it wasn't 1960, it wasn't 1951. But Audrey gets it correct. Audrey gets a 4 point. It was 1952. So well done to Audrey. Okay, which Group 1 race did jockey Adam Kirby win on Adia in 2021? Which Group 1 race did Adia and Adam Kirby win? Miss Marple gets the point immediately, so taking Miss Marple into second place. Third point for you. Of course, it was the Derby. Left to run a pre-training and breaking yard at Kirtling near Newmarket because he was too heavy to remain as a jockey after that, so he had to give up. But he was a brilliantly successful jockey for all of 5 minutes, but then he got too heavy, so he couldn't do it anymore, and he couldn't cope with all the saunas because they have to be in, and they've changed the rules on the saunas, so he can't do that anymore. In which national park is the Haweswater Reservoir to be found? Haweswater. It's not Dartmoor.
Gloucestershire.
Mr. Balding, you can have the question. You can have the point. Mr. Balding, a new entrant. It is the Lake District National Park, of course. It supplies water to 2 million people across the northwest of England. Haweswater. I've been there a few times. Nice place. In which year did Chapel Roan release Pink Pony? It plays constantly on the Riviera radio down here in France. I find it the most annoying song. It was released in the second week of lockdown. And the first person to get the answer correct is Matt Luke Kent. Matt Luke Kent. So we have to give you a point, Mr. Matt Luke Kent. It was 2020. So you get a point, Matt Luke Kent. but it was number one in the charts for 2 weeks again in March 2025, and it's continually played on the Riviera radio, and I just think it is the most annoying song I've ever heard. It's just awful. I cannot stand it. Horrible song. Okay. From which airline were Liam Gallagher and the entirety of Oasis banned and blacklisted for life in May 1988? Or was it 1998?
Airways.
The screaming in the background is incorrect as usual. It wasn't Ryanair, it wasn't Aer Lingus, it wasn't EasyJet, it wasn't British Airways. No, it wasn't Virgin, it wasn't BOAC, it wasn't American Airlines, it wasn't Logan Air, no, it wasn't Emirates. Audrey gets the point. So Audrey is our winner. 5 points to Audrey. So in this particular instance, Audrey did very well. Well, I didn't finish my original quiz, and I started with that one. So, oh dear, I've got to work out how I fix that. But anyway, never mind. Since you've had all the other quizzes, yes, I can't write them quick enough. That's the problem. Oh dear, there's a family feud coming up with the Beckhams, so to do with a beer and a trademark. Oh dear. So that's what's just come up on my little Google. But anyway, never mind. That doesn't matter. Anyway, it's 11 o'clock. It's soon time to go to bed because there's lots to be done tomorrow and figure out what's going on. You liked it tonight. Audrey did very well. Yes, I quite agree. So anyway, that's enough of that. And right, you like the questions. I'm glad you like the questions. I do take a lot of time to think about questions, and I mix up a lot of different things, but it takes an awful lot of time because, now I've got so many, you can't repeat the same question twice. So you've got to think about it. Anyway, before we go, when we're nearly at 2 hours and 30, on top of the hour we nearly had before. So let's have a few questions for the next 4 minutes, if you really wish. And if you've got any more questions, or please fire away, and then we will say good night and pip pip and all that. And then I can go to sleep, which is what I need to do, and escape the insects. Miss Marple, please look out for your delivery. Oh, that's very kind. That's very nice of you. From FedEx. Okay, well, that's very kind of you to send me a delivery. Thank you very much, Miss Marple. That's very generous. You think I've got nice hair? My hair's a mess. Total mess. What shampoo do I use? Oh, just any old rubbish, Head and Shoulders or whatever it's called. No, they're not very good at cutting hair in this vicinity. I will say that. I've been to 2 different hair salons, and both of them have been a little bit disastrous, to say the least. Just a total tip. I look like I've been dragged backwards through a hedge. There we go. Right. Have I been to the Isle of Man? Yes, I have been to the Isle of Man several times. Not my kind of place, to be honest. I was forced to go there as a school child to some kind of outdoor bound type nonsense. Well, we were made to go and scramble through mud and all the rest. I thought it was disgusting. I refused to join in most of the activities because I was a very stubborn child, and I didn't. I said I'd rather go and read a book. So they let me just stay in the place and read a book because that's all I wanted to do. I didn't like all that nonsense. And then I've been back there on another occasion, but that's for another reason. But no, I don't like the Isle of Man. No, never, ever again. Don't want to go there ever again in my life. Don't like it there. Horrible. Do I live by a marina? Well, where I am at the moment is it's effectively one big almighty marina full of boats. Yeah. But I don't live here. I'm just visiting. Just the ponytail thing. Yeah, I can't stand it. Can't stand that song. Awful. The Pink Pony or whatever it's called. Oh, it's awful. Do I like Liverpool? Yes, I'm going to visit Liverpool. My lovely friend, Lady Bianne Vanita Buck, has a home in Liverpool, and I'm going to go and visit her one day. I'll definitely go and visit. When I'm back in England, I'd like to go there. It's a good place to stop on the way to Edinburgh, isn't it, really? Because I can go on the West Coast main line up to Carlisle and then cut across or something like that. That'd be quite nice. Do I like sambuca? No, I don't like sambuca. Not my kind of drink. But each to their own. If we all like the same thing, the world would be dull. But no, sambuca is not for me. Not for me. Right. What's my favorite race course? Well, I like lots of race courses. I think Brighton's a wonderful race. Goodwood has the best views. Cartmel is the most eccentric. Cheltenham I love the roar, the festival, the noise is fabulous. I'm not that into the Grand National. I think it's a silly race. I don't see the point of the Grand National because it's just a stupid race that's for the public. But at least it gets people interested in horse racing. So that's a positive of it. But it's not really a race to bet on. And people who are into horse racing don't really like the Grand National. Let's be honest. Real horse racing people would never even think about it. It's just a crazy race. It's completely mad. But they're trying to make it more politically correct, and that's another problem with it. I don't like political correctness. Of course, we've got Royal Ascot next week. Coming up, so that'll be a great thing to watch if you can watch. There will be an amazing spectacle on a couple of days. I haven't studied any of the form, but maybe I might be able to get some good advice in the coming days, and I can give you some good advice. But I don't think I'm going to be the expert for you this year. Do I like real Cornish pastries, you call them? I think you mean pasties, Cormac. Cornish pasties. I find the pastry is a bit stodgy. Not really my thing, but they're okay. I like the meat inside because it's got a bit of spice, but I don't like the pastry. I think the pastry is a bit. In most cases, it's a bit. I don't know. I've never ever had. You think I should stay at the Owestry Welsh border on your trip? I don't know where the Owestry Welsh border is, Amanda, but that's very kind of you. You've got an Airbnb. Okay, well, I don't know. Well, I probably will be going to Liverpool first and then Scotland because that's on the way. Do I like oysters? Yes, I do enjoy an oyster. I had some oysters the other day with my lovely Dutch friends. That was very nice. Yes, well, Amanda, you could get a number of visitors. You've got people like Miss Marple who misses there. You need to come there, right? Well, there you go. The old chapel in Owestry, Welsh border. Okay, well, there we go. Maybe you can promote your holiday home. Perhaps put your little link to your Airbnb in the advertising here, the chat, and then maybe some of these people might come to visit. Right. Will I meet Linz when in Liverpool? Well, if Linz is in Liverpool, we could meet up with Linz, of course. Yes. Have I been to Staffordshire? Yes, I've been to Staffordshire. Lovely potteries and lots of breweries. We used to have lots of meetings with a big brewing company. I'm trying to remember its name. Spirit Group, Burton-upon-Trent. I used to go there for meetings with them. Karen, somebody or other was her name. She now runs pubs. She's one of the biggest pub owners in Britain. She was for a while anyway. Karen, the Spirit Group. Anyway, I used to go and have meetings with her about our drinks, and she was a very helpful lady, in fact. And Burton upon Trent is a very big brewing place, so that was very interesting. Yep. But that was many years ago, so I can't remember her name. Karen something. It'll be in my phone somewhere. I'm very forgetful with things that are long past, because I have to focus on the things that are current, like today talking about McCann. I have to keep all the in my mind, so that's how I work. Yes, Molson Coors. No, that wasn't the name of the brewery. It was called the Spirit Group, and they were one of the biggest public house owners in Britain for quite a while. The Titanic Brewery is local to you. Yes, well, that's in Northern Ireland, I assume. I did have a bottle of the Titanic gin, and also the people who visited here, who live here down the street, they're no longer here. They brought me some Irish potato gin, but I did have the Titanic gin from Belfast sent to me in Broadstairs, and that was quite an interesting concoction. I don't think it has anything to do with the Titanic boat, because obviously it wasn't made when the Titanic boat sank. So anyway, I tried it and I quite liked the taste. So there we go. Did it go down well? That's a good joke. Yes. But yes, no Titanic in Stoke. You like plum porter. Okay. Well, that's a type of beer. Okay. Well, anyway, it's now time to say thank you very much. We've had a lovely evening. It's been absolutely delightful to have 2 visitations with you on top of all the program I did with the other one. I've done an awful lot of programming today. I think I must have done 3.5, 4 hours of programming. So I think it's time for me to go to sleep. Let's be honest. Time to say night-night and pip-pip, and thank you very much. And we will see you again in a couple of days. So thank you. Thank you and good night. Thank you very much. Pip-pip. Good night and good gardening. Take care. Bye-bye.